As you are probably aware, a number of key primaries and a special election took place Tuesday. Let's go to the Texas's 34th Congressional District, where Republican Mayra Flores won a special election to replace a congressman who left the House to become a lobbyist. The win for the GOP flips a House seat from blue to red. Flores will be the first Mexican-born woman to serve in the U.S. Congress. In South Carolina's 1st District, incumbent Congresswoman Nancy Mace won her GOP primary over Trump-endorsed candidate Katie Arrington. An endorsement from former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley helped a lot, as well as Mace calling herself a fiscal conservative. Meanwhile, in South Carolina's 7th District, incumbent Congressman Tom Rice lost by more than 2-to-1 margin to Trump-endorsed candidate Russell Fry. This marks the first time this election cycle that an incumbent who voted for former President Trump's impeachment lost at the ballot box. And in Nevada's Republican Senate primary, Adam Laxalt won by almost 20 points to advance to the general election. He will face Democrat incumbent Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, considered by some to be one of the most vulnerable Senate Democrats seeking re-election this cycle. For more on all of this, let us bring in Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne. Leslie, as you're probably well aware, CBS News political analyst and Republican strategist. Joel, CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Okay, for both of you. We sort of get tired with the thematic approach of Trump endorsement value, how much, where, what conditions. Leslie and Joel, break it down after these results.
We'll go with ladies first, Major. I'll start.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. So, again, I think we're exactly where we were in the last primary, where you see Trump has a mixed record. Some really big wins that you talked about, where Trump endorsements made a significant difference. You talked about South Carolina, where you had Tom Rice, Nancy Mace, and those two both have voted for impeachment with regard to January 6th. Nancy Mace came back around, ended up doing campaign ads in front of Trump Tower and looking for the aura of the Trump support, and she wins, Rice loses. That's a really significant message, I think, for a lot of incumbents and a lot of folks who are politically calculating how close they want to be to the president. There is no doubt the former president has a significant impact in raising money, raising profile. It's peculiar, many would argue, that the individuals he chooses, and he is not backing down from a fight in supporting many unconventional candidates in primaries against Republican incumbents. That being said, you still have a lot of jockeying and folks who are trying to decide just how close they want to get to Trump looking to 2022 November.
Joel?
Well, look, I think we are so thirsty sometimes to have these conclusive results from these primary nights, these special elections, et cetera. The truth is the country is very diverse. There's a lot of one-offs. And there are very few themes. You could have told 5 different stories based on the results last night. And by the way, that mimics recent primary days that we've seen. I think the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump is very much an influencer in the Republican Party, but I do think the Republican Party is slipping from his grip ever so slightly. National Republicans, I think, see that Donald Trump overall, that brand is waning in its significance nationally in a general election setting, even if it's strong within the base. So I wouldn't draw too many conclusions. What I would say, however, though, if I was a Republican and my friend Leslie here, we go back and forth a lot very lovingly, I'd be worried about some of these candidates that they are nominating this cycle. It reminds me a little bit of 2010. I worked in the Senate leadership in 2010 when you had folks like Todd Akin, Richard Murdoch, Christine O'Donnell, who were on the Republican ticket. And I would say some of these candidates, the Herschel Walkers and the Adam Laxalts, sound very similar to those folks.
So, Leslie, let's talk 2024, because it's never too early to talk about 2024. And to Joel's point a second ago, I want you to take it on. Is the Trump brand waning? And do you look at evidence that can be found in Senator Tom Cotton, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Mike Pompeo? There's a list of about 12 Republicans who are currently mobilizing to make ready for a 2024 run if, in fact, former President Trump doesn't run, or even if he does, and you would have to add former Vice President Mike Pence into that list. What does that tell you about how they're assessing the power and future prominence of the Trump brand?
I think you almost have to look back to 2016. And what's interesting about all the candidates that you named is they are much more in the model of a Donald Trump than they are of the establishment Republican that we saw lining up 2015, 2016. That was more what traditional Republican Party looked like. Now it is a much more populist party. It is much more echoing the themes that we heard throughout the Trump presidency and certainly the Trump campaigns: America First, deregulation, energy independence, border security. Those themes, while they may not be new to the Republican Party, there is much more of an effort to take this on, and they see an opportunity, the candidates that you named, the potential candidates that you named, to have the sway of the support, that populist support of conservatives and independents who feel that they liked where Trump was going with respect to the direction of this country, but they did not like his personal style and, quite honestly, his character. That's why it's creating opportunity. And to dismiss that Trump was really kind of the face of this particular undercurrent, the movement, to mix my metaphors, would really miss how much support there is for these Republican nominees, I predict, in the future.
And of course, President Biden, Democrat. Democrats run the Senate nominally and the House. So, Joel, those close to the president keep insisting he's going to be a candidate for re-election in 24, and let's actually hear them do some of that insisting.
The answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
The president, as you know, has been asked that question many times, and he has answered it. His answer has been pretty simple, which is, yes, he's running for re-election. I can't say more than that.
Joel, lots of insistence, but there are some reports out there that Democrats, at least some Democrats, somewhat antsy about the idea of another Biden run and possibly, if he prevails, inaugurating an 82-year-old Mr. Biden for a second term. That's mostly in the progressive side of the party. Assess for us.
Yeah. Look, the answer, Major, is going to be yes until it's no. And I know that kind of seems silly, but that's just the bottom line. Until the answer is no, it's going to be yes. And the fact of the matter is, I don't think people in the Democratic Party were under any, aspersions about Joe Biden. We knew what we were getting in terms of the types of positive qualities he was going to bring to the office, but we also knew that this was a man at advanced age who was very much in the sunset of his political career, and we knew that he was a transitionary figure. Now, that transition could be in 4 years or 8 years. I think right now, if maybe things were a little bit more clear in terms of succession with Vice President Harris or other leaders in the party, I think maybe there'd be a clearer answer. But right now, Joe Biden is still the leader of the Democratic Party and probably the best chance of Democrats holding the White House, particularly if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. I've been saying for a long time, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, styles make fights, and I think that Joe Biden is Donald Trump kryptonite.
Low approval ratings matter to every president. They matter to this one. They can only be described as a pressing concern. Gallup puts President Biden's approval rating at 41%. Since taking office January 20th, 2021, we all remember that, it's gone down to the low 40s, and since last September, stayed there ever since. More concerning, probably for Democrats, his disapproval numbers have jumped almost 20 points, from 37 to 54% currently. Joel, that's not good.
Not good at all. And look, it's got folks like me, really concerned, as you would be. You want a president that's more popular than 2 and 5. That said, I think that there is still a Biden coalition out there that can be salvaged. I think there's a path for the president, for his administration to rebound. You're at pretty much the low watermark in terms of inflation, in terms of feelings about the economy, in terms of consumer prices. If in the next 6 months that improves, you're looking at a very different feeling in the electorate going into the midterms. I guess what I would also say, too, is, look, there are economic indicators, and let's be honest, a lot of this is driven by economic anxiety. The economic indicators high level in the economy are good. I just think the vibes are off economically. I don't mean to be too cute about it, but really it's a bad vibes economy, and I think that's going to impact the president and the folks that are running with the president in 6 months and in 2 years.
Leslie, I want to let you run at this first, but Joel, if you have any thoughts on this, jump in. So I well remember covering the Trump White House that former President Trump was often at 41%, almost his entire presidency, and he didn't care about that. The reason he didn't care about that is because it was a ferocious, motivated, and clearly defined base. Remind our audience about that and why 41% for former President Trump, when he was in office, President Trump, 41% Biden are looked at differently by by different presidents.
The president's approval rating measure was a flat line. That was basically the consistency from the beginning to the end, maybe a little blip here and there. Unlike conventional presidencies where they look for these high water marks and low marks, especially related and connected to the impact and how people are feeling about the economy and their own pocketbook. Trump was a contrarian on that as well. For a lot of the reasons you spoke about, there is an interesting statistic with respect to Gallup that they've put out, and it's polarization when you're seeing the extremes on both sides, and it's continued to move in that direction. But what you did see in 2021 is a move about 9 points from the Democrats to a +5 for Republicans, and you haven't seen a +5 or any pluses on the Republican side with respect to independents, significantly moving that way for a while. And what that tells me, again, is what Biden is facing is this difficult economy and a very mercurial electorate who want to see action and responses directly affecting their family households, and they want to see it immediately.
Joel,
Major,
the last word ever so quickly.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Intensity is the word here. You're right to point out that President Biden does not have the intensity in his base that President Trump does. That's the intense positivity. He also doesn't have the intense negativity on the other side, which gives Biden a ladder back to sea level. And I think that's important to remember as well.
Ladders back to sea level. Joe Biden needs one. Leslie Sanchez, Joel Payne, thank you very much.